as we become small business owners, we have to also shift our mindset to being entrepreneurs and CEOs of our business, right? And so part of that is being able to take a step back and saying, okay, is some of the stuff that I'm doing, is that the best use of my time?
This is Therapist Clubhouse, a podcast for private practice entrepreneurs. I'm Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to Melvin Varghese, a private practice entrepreneur in Philadelphia. He's the creator of Selling the Couch, an extremely popular podcast for therapists, and Healthcasters, a course and community for therapists and wellness professionals creating their own podcasts. That's where I met Melvin. Listen as Melvin goes deep about his entrepreneurial journey and explains how he gets so much done. Welcome, Melvin. Thanks for being on Therapist Clubhouse.
Hey, Annie, good to be here. Looking forward to our conversation. Looks like we're both enjoying great weather wherever I'm in Philly and you're in San Francisco. So
yeah, we both have a lot of sunshine. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's, for me, this is surreal getting to interview you because you're the one who has been teaching me how to podcast. So turning the microphone on you is like really super weird and wonderful for me.
Oh, I'm honored. I think I've definitely learned a lot in my own podcasting journey. I feel like in some ways a little bit about podcasting, more about life and taking risks and having the courage to do stuff that terrifies you, but happy to share and share and support and all of those things. So
great. So yeah, I really want to talk to you about your entrepreneurial journey. I know you've got a few big things going on, like you have Selling the Couch, the podcast and the community there. You have Healthcasters, the course and community that I'm part of. Mm-hmm. And you've got your private practice. And then just as we were talking right before we started recording, you were telling me that you also are working in an agency still doing assessments. So there's a lot I want to ask you about. Let's start with your private practice. Can you tell me how long you've been in private practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in a group. I've been licensed a total of about 5 years now. I was in a group practice for about 3.5. Wanted to go into solo practice about 2 years ago. And then I kind of had the idea for Selling the Couch. So it took a little bit of a break to focus on that. But I started back in private practice earlier this year, just wanting to keep wanting to be in the space, wanting to, serve. And I love private practice. I think now trying to figure out how to navigate it with some grace and trying to figure out all of those things while keeping, self-care and family and all of those things at the forefront.
Yeah. And in this iteration of private practice, who are you seeing? Who are your clients?
Yeah. So, even that, I think navigating. So the natural thing I've been doing is working a lot with the entrepreneurs and the startup scene here in Philly. Philly has a pretty big entrepreneurial scene. There's a couple of quite large companies from State Farm to AWeber that are here local. And they just have a big startup community. A lot of universities here, Penn's here, Drexel's here, Temple's here. Several of them have actually entrepreneur incubator, like think tanks.
Ah.
Yeah, so just lots of neat stuff around that. So I think, feel a passion toward that. We can talk about the other side, but I've always had a interest in sports psychology. I was actually talking with my old roommate. He was my roommate when I was during my postdoc year when I lived in Nashville. And he was like, and I was telling him, I still kind of want to work with basketball players. And he's like, you used to say that like 6-7 years ago. I was like, really? Like, maybe I should follow this instead of just talking about it. So long and short of it is working primarily with entrepreneurs, startups, but I do have this secret passion in trying to figure it out in terms of sports psych and working specifically with basketball players on mindfulness and sort of the mental aspects of basketball, everything from free throws to the pregame routine and how that sort of impacts performance.
How'd you get interested in that? Are you a huge basketball fan? Are you a player?
Yeah, well, player. Let's loosely define. 5'10" skinny Indian guy, right? So, It's funny. I grew up playing basketball. I was born in India and came here, and I think basketball was, in many ways, I think how I found an identity here and a sense of belonging. So I grew up playing a lot of basketball. Everything from local rec leagues to playing in the YMCA leagues. Played in as really active or continue to still be active in my church community, and there's actually church leagues and all this stuff. So I just thought, combining these two sort of passions around psychology and basketball. So that's the other thing. Philadelphia also has a huge basketball scene. So there's a lot of AAU things. I mean, there's entire gyms that are being dedicated to peak performance and all that stuff. So.
Oh, interesting. And does it feel like there's a lot of overlap between entrepreneurs and basketball players in terms of the issues? Yeah,
I do. I mean, I think, I don't know, it's like these are, I think, things I've been thinking a lot about is, I think it may look a little different, right? For example, the entrepreneur who feels overwhelmed because they're trying to work on this current project or this, launching something, right? But and it could be the basketball player that's at the free throw line, right? And they're internally feeling overwhelmed because they think about the last time they were at the free throw line, or they missed the free throw, or they notice that player that's talking to them on the opposition, and kind of making fun of them, or, trying to get in their head, right? So the details are different, but I think the internal struggles are very much the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, as an entrepreneur, one of those places would be public speaking, where there's that fear and that desire to keep doing it. But then also it's one of the hardest things I think that I do as an entrepreneur. And I'm imagining, that you're helping people with the same thing, whether they're entrepreneurs or whether it's the free throw.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the public speaking aspect, a lot of that's true. Or I think a big thing is a sense of I'm important enough to be doing a talk, and I think that overlaps with basketball players because a lot of the basketball players that I want to work with so my dream is actually to be a sports psychologist for Team USA. This is my big dream, but there's a lot of, AAU leagues here. So a lot of select teams and a lot of coaches visiting, trying to recruit these players to, full scholarships and things. And so there's a different, I think, level of who am I and am I worthy of this kind of idea? So,
yeah. And I imagine also trying to create balance in life when you're in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, trying to find yourself while not, I guess, losing yourself.
So is it scary in this iteration of your practice? Is it scary to go after these niches?
Yeah, it's terrifying actually. Because, I think part of it is the last 2 years as I've had these conversations on selling the couch, it's a lot of, hey, what's working, what's not working. And that's a little different than jumping in and trying to do it on your own, right? I do feel a little bit more pressure because I feel because of the podcast, it's a little more public, which I think is good, and it comes with its challenges, right? So one of the episodes I kind of decided today was, I think in the next season will be around my struggle with niching and sort of reconciling these two passions of business and entrepreneurship with basketball. So,
oh, I can't wait. That's so interesting. But yeah, you're in a sort of pressured, more exposed position in a way. And to a lesser degree, I feel that way too. I just made a change in my private practice where I'm handing over my group practice to one of the awesome therapists in it so that I am not doing the group practice anymore. And now I'm just going to have a really small therapy practice. And as I was getting the website ready, I was feeling okay, I want this to be wonderful because it matters to me, but also I'm teaching people how to create really good websites. So it puts the pressure up a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's a different and a very unique aspect of it, right? Yeah, it's like it's almost like I have to be like, okay, what did I mention or what did I learn? And I probably shouldn't do that, Yeah, it's definitely it's been interesting, but that being said, I wouldn't trade it for anything because I think we started to talk about this. Like, I'm naturally an introvert, and I'm an INFJ on my Myers-Briggs, and
Me too.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
who knew? And so, yeah, the thought of like, I'm great at like building these like one-on-one, more intimate conversations, right? Mm-hmm. But the thought of doing something like a podcast where it's so public, right? And truth be told, I don't think I realized how big the podcasting space was, right? So, I mean, I was thinking like, okay, maybe I'll have listeners in Philly and then, across the US, right? And yeah, I think I looked at the latest stats, and I think now SDC, I think, is in 107 countries or something like that, right? Like, it's crazy.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, but I think it speaks to this day and age that we're in, right? Like, that something that we create and we feel a passion toward, it's a relatively low barrier of entry compared to what it was even 15 years ago.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and that reminds me of a question about your therapy practice. Are you seeing people only in the office, or are you seeing people remotely from all over? How are you running that?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I work with the basketball players, it's primarily my office is a gym, which is really nice. But my plan right now is, and I'm trying to figure this out, but my goal is to try to do 100% online practice, just because I think a couple of practical things. I think one, I want to be able to like have meals and things with my family. Two, I think we live in the Northeast where there are random weather events, and actually, we didn't talk about this, but when I was in the group practice, there was a crazy blizzard here in Philly. We had almost 40 inches of snow. I had to cancel 3 days worth of clients. It was like over 20 clients, quite a bit of income loss, unanticipated income loss. And we were saving up for the down payment on our house. And so I think at that moment is when I realized a couple of things. One is I wanted to learn more about online counseling and try to remove as much of the barriers as I could that prevent, the process of therapy. And then two, I think this online counseling medium, I think it works for certain populations. I don't know that it works for everyone. At least that's sort of my insight, or something I've kind of picked up. But yeah, I think the online space, I like the location independence aspect of it. I like the convenience aspect of it. I feel like generally that's where the world is going in terms of convenience and all of those things. So, and then at a practical level, I mean, some of the traditional costs of operating a therapy practice, you can potentially take out a big chunk of that, like, i.e. like office space and things like that.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking that basketball players are all over. And then that would be just a great way to reach more of them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I like this idea of niching because, especially in this day and age, because of the internet, right? You can be relatively niched and still find, like, for example, I could connect with basketball players in Pittsburgh, even though Pittsburgh is 7 hours away.
Yeah. And with selling the couch, what is your business model? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that I have thought of it in those terms. Well, I like to think of selling the couch as somewhat of an accident. And so it was what motivated me to launch Selling the Couch was that snowstorm. And then I would have conversations with two of my good friends while we were in the group practice we would meet once a month and at my friend's apartment, and we'd have a meal together, and then we'd try to figure out, what do we do with this private practice journey? Like what's, and we quickly realized that we just didn't have the the business and marketing sort of skills that, it takes to run a business is different. Like we all had a lot of clinical training. So in terms of the business model, what I do is I primarily use podcasting as a way to just provide great content, free content, what I hope is valuable content, because for me, it's like I almost want it to be the business or the marketing classes that we never got to have.
It's like you're sort of creating it for the Melvin and all of the people like you of that time. Yeah. And when did you realize that you wanted to start Healthcasters, your course that teaches people how to podcast?
Well, so I launched my podcast in March of 2015. I started planning for it around November of 2014 for the first couple of weeks, and kind of throughout, I think I was more scared and kept putting it off. I launched Healthcasters in November of 2015. And the only reason I launched Healthcasters was actually never part of the plan. It was more that folks started reaching out, wanting help with launching their podcasts. And I just thought, I've made a bunch of mistakes. And what if I just create something to help avoid those mistakes? And then I think more than that, just create a community of just like, I call it like mission focused experts. So the Healthcasters is basically health, wellness, and fitness experts that are driven to a greater, like a why, beyond a greater mission of why they do their businesses. And what we do is we try to use this platform of podcasting to serve others kind of in bigger ways, and then also to grow our businesses, which, I never thought of it, but I think you can do both of those things, right? You can serve and you can create income for your business.
Yeah. And I've found that the Healthcasters community, the community that you've built is so special. It's really supportive. And it does feel like everybody there is trying to do both, is trying to build their business and is also really being thoughtful about what they want to put out there. Yeah,
no, it's a wonderful community. There's an old African proverb. I hope I do not butcher this. Oh, alone we go faster. Together we go further.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that was a big vision of why with Selling the Couch and with Healthcasters, I just, I grew up my early life in India. It was a very community dependent. My aunts and my uncles and my neighbors and my grandparents all were my parents, right? Like they helped raise me. And I think that idea of that we don't have to do things alone, and that we can learn from each other and support each other and just come from a place of abundance, instead of fear, I guess, is the other end of it. I think that's what ultimately motivated me to create both Healthcasters and Selling the Couch.
Mm-hmm. You've got a lot that you're balancing. What have you learned, or what kind of mistakes do you think you've made in trying to balance all of those things and do them at the same time?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is I had to painfully learn to not try to do everything on my own. I think every business owner, every practitioner, every entrepreneur goes through this, is that we create this thing that's ours, right? And it just has our fingerprints all over it. And then at some point, as it starts to build out, we realize that we have to outsource some of this stuff. And it terrifies us. At least that's what it was for me. And I almost like try to control it even more. So the biggest lesson I learned was that, well, a couple of things. One is outsource early and often. And two, distinguish between working in your business versus on your business. Because for us as clinicians, we're naturally technicians, right? We have a very specific skill set. And what comes naturally to us is working in our business. So we see a client, we get paid, right? But as we become small business owners, we have to also shift our mindset to being entrepreneurs and CEOs of our business, right? And so part of that is being able to take a step back and saying, okay, is some of the stuff that I'm doing, is that the best use of my time? Can someone do that better, right? What am I, by doing this thing and this thing taking up my time, what am I giving up? Right. And those are kind of bigger and more harder questions. I don't know. I think for like common things for us as clinicians might be billing. That's like a very common one. Scheduling.
Absolutely. Or even like, I think looking at the things that only you can do, like that, I mean, not only you can do, but only you can do in your business, right? Like seeing clients, if you're a solo practitioner, creating content, like actually, doing the writing or the interviewing or whatever it is. And then looking at like, well, what else is there? And I know you've been really encouraging people in Healthcasters, like look at getting your podcast edited by someone who is excellent at it. And that's what they do. So just looking for all those opportunities where I'm not the only one who can do this part.
Yeah. I know for me, and I feel like a lot of us struggle with a lot of things around money, right? So we almost see money as a zero-sum game, right? So if I give you some of my money, even though you're providing a service for me, it's less money that I have for myself. And I think what started to change for me is I started saying, you know what, if I give you my money and you give me and the quality's awesome, what that frees me up is time. And it's time that I can dedicate to doing what I want. Right. Whether it's creating something else or just resting or, something like that. So,
yeah. What do you think your ideal schedule is?
Oh, that's a good one. My ideal schedule is Mondays and Fridays. I want to do what's called work on your business days. So those are basically what I'm working on, projects, stuff that I feel really passionate about. Maybe it's, everything from creating maybe ideas for a new course all the way to one of the things I'm working on is a directory for our field for helpers and healers focused on us to be able to connect and collaborate. So I'd focus days like that on Mondays and Fridays are that. Tuesdays are private practice days. Wednesdays are dedicated to podcasting. So those are podcast interviews going on podcasts. I do webinars on podcasting, so those are kind of those days. Thursdays right now are I still work at an outpatient clinic here. I do a lot of testing and assessment. Yeah, so I mean, I still love that work. So I think that's kind of my ideal is that I would probably have I think I like the freedom and the flexibility of having Mondays and Fridays a little more flexible. Just because if we ever go on trips or if I need to take a half day or something like that, I have that sort of latitude as well.
Nice. That's interesting. I have a similar schedule in terms of having theme days. And I think it's so helpful what you just described where you still of course have to figure out what's most important within that theme, but all right, Tuesday, providing therapy, Wednesday, podcast. And I find that so much easier. I've only been doing this for a few months this way. It's so much easier to organize my time. Yeah,
I almost think of it as like I feel like our mind needs posts, like kind of guideposts about what days, like at least that's the way that my mind operates. Because otherwise, it wasn't always like this. What I used to do was I used to just start and be like, okay, what do I got to do? Right? I have this massive checklist, and then just start trying to check off. But the problem was I would often get to the end of days and I just felt like I didn't accomplish what I wanted to. And so we talked about this before we got started, but it sounds like we're both like Excel document kind of nerds on this. But so I created a Google Sheet, and what I did was I just labeled it Monday through Friday. And then underneath I put the theme for that day. And then I broke it down into the start of my day so I start my days pretty early. I get up at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, wow. You have me beat. I get up at 5:40 and usually people gasp when I say that. You really have me beat.
So the first hour is actually spent, I'm a big fan of morning routines. So the first hour is spent working out. I listen to a TED Talk every day because what I was doing was starting the day off with email and or just reading news and it just like upset me. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to stuff that people are doing well. And then I do a little bit of a meditation routine, just something really quick. One of the things I want to start to do is just a quick, like 5-minute journal entry, just to get my creative space going. So I start work technically, I guess, at 6 a.m. What I found, and this works for my, like, sort of the way I'm wired, I find that I'm the most productive in the mornings. So I can just get a lot of things done. I start to shut down by, 1, 2 o'clock. So a lot of the big heavy lifting stuff I'll do at the start of the day.
Yeah, I really work that way too. And it often surprises therapists that you can have a really full therapy practice during daytime hours, if that's what you want. So in this suite where I have my therapy practice, I get there on the day that I'm a therapist. I get there at like 8 a.m. and I'm always gone by 2. And so a lot of times I barely see any other therapists because that's when a lot of people start.
Well, I mean, you intentionally like are trying to you're trying to build a career around your life, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of the other way around. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I didn't think it was actually possible, and I'm definitely not there yet, but I think what I try to do is just try to move toward it. I don't know. There was one other thought that I was going to say. So with that Excel document, what I do is when I break things down into 30-minute chunks, I'll actually have like a block of time for social media and things like that so that I'm not, because the other thing I was noticing was like I was jumping in on social media and, the problem was like I love interacting on social media, but it was distracting me from other stuff. So I kind of block out generally what I'm doing at that time. And then what I do is I color code it between working on your business versus working in your business.
Ooh, I love that. Have you read the book, Deep Work?
No,
I think you would really like it. It's basically saying that we're not going deep enough in our thinking and our work at this point because of things like social media and because of even like open workspaces, which can be helpful in some ways, but that what we need a lot more in the world is deep work where we set aside large amounts of time to do very challenging work. And so, yeah, reading that book kind of changed the way that I set up my schedule, but it sounds like you're already doing a lot of it.
Yeah, no, I'll have to check it out. The book that impacted me was the One Thing. Very good book. It was written by the co-founder of Keller Williams Realty, and it's all about focusing on that one task. So we talked earlier about like the to-do list, right? And so what I used to do was I used to have a to-do list, and I would try to go down that list. And what they say is what you should do is, I forgot the term they use. I think they call it a success list. So what you should do is you should categorize your to-do lists in terms of what is the most important thing that I can do today, such that by doing it, everything else that I do pertaining to that becomes easier.
Ooh, nice.
And I think that's helped me also because then it makes the decisions of, do I delegate this, right? Or am I supposed to be working on this a little easier? One of the problems with the to-do list is we make the assumption that everything has 100% priority. Whereas this idea of the success list is not everything is of equal priority, right? Some are actually, they have this image of like the dominoes, right? So what's that first domino that you can hit that knocks down the other ones?
Oh, I'm going to totally have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a good book. I try to, I read that book, or I've listened to it on Audible 4 times now here in the past couple of months, because every time I listen to it, I'm like, man, it's such a good way of, I'll pick up something else and I'm like, oh, that's good. So
with setting goals and planning, I know you were saying that, you started planning the podcast a year later, you were doing the course. So you tend to get a lot done in your life. How do you set goals and plan? Do you tend to go with the flow? Do you tend to plan years out or months out?
So I'm a over planner probably, but what I do try to do is so actually I have a Evernote. On my Evernote I have a folder called the Vault, which is all my ideas that I want to do. So what I do is I just write them down. It doesn't mean that I need to do them right now. And what I have found is focusing really intensely on one thing for a season is usually what's helped me. I learned this, I think, in grad school and also writing my dissertation, because when I had to write 6 chapters, if I thought of it like, how am I going to get this 100 some odd page dissertation done? I was just going to freak out. But whereas I literally broke it down into chunks like, okay, well, this is going to be the lit review. And so what are the sections of the lit review and what am I going to write on each paragraph? And I try to just do the same thing. So, with Healthcasters, when I created it, I was like, okay, now if I were starting all over again, what would I want to learn? It also helped that I took a lot of notes from stuff as I was learning and tweaking, and I started there and I said, what would I want to learn? Right. Then I started by reaching out to folks that I knew were interested in podcasting, and I asked them what would they want to learn. And I just said, hey guys, I'm trying to create this course. I think this would be helpful. It's just I want to make sure, since I'm a little further along, sometimes I can I don't want to make assumptions, in terms of just because I've picked it up. So lots of early conversations with people. I'm kind of a data person, so I did a lot of Google Forms, which is free. I use SurveyMonkey now, which is a little more robust, but I used Google Forms back then, and I would just say, it was a simple question. I was like, what's the number one thing you want to learn about podcasting? And I think like anyone that's trying to create a course or any kind of online content, like just starting with that question and asking people that are interested, I think one, it gives you ideas for what your course could look like. And then I think it also gives you ideas of what their pain points are.
Oh, that's good. Actually, that perfectly segues into the question that a listener wrote in. Would you join me for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Listener question.
Okay, so this person asked, how can I offer web-based services to expand my reach and free up my time while making money, and walk that line of it being therapeutic and helpful to my ideal client while acknowledging that it's not therapy?
Yeah, so how do I basically create content in a way that helps at least ideal clients, right?
Yeah, and that's like, the way I'm thinking about this is like, there's so many potential answers for this of how to do this. But like, let's say if this person was thinking about creating their own course, of finding that line where it's helpful, but it's not therapy. I think part of it is just being really transparent over and over again and saying like, this is a separate program. Like if it's on the same website, which it probably should be because you don't want to have to do twice the amount of work, but that you could have it in a really separate part of your website and make it really clear, I'm a therapist and this is not a therapy program. So that's just one part of it. But yeah, anything else that comes to mind?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think transparency along all of it, I think is really key. I think one thing that when I started selling the couch, I would listen to a lot of like online marketing, a lot of business stuff. And a lot of these experts kept saying like, build an email list. And I was like, I don't know what an email list is. I should probably figure this out. But now I look back and I took their advice. So I started building an email list with Selling the Couch. And I think one thing that was helpful in hindsight, because email is still, I feel like, the best way in many ways to interact with people, right? Like, when you're sending an email, it's literally going into their inbox, right? Whereas if you're relying on social media, necessarily not everyone sees it. So I guess the long and short of it, the email list is important with regard to that question, because it can help you identify what folks who you serve are interested in, right? I don't know if this will ever happen, but like my work with basketball players, one of the things that I want to do is create a course around the mental aspect of free throw shooting.
Nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because it would allow me to serve much more folks, right, than just seeing them. That's one. And then, it sort of help me diversify.
That's a beautiful example. Yeah. And I think also, like, along with building the email list, that really goes hand in hand with it, is in the very beginning, not being afraid of giving away a lot for free, and trusting, like you're saying, Melvin, that you're going to get a sense of what's most valuable to people and what their pain points are as you do that, and you see what the response is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'm definitely not like a marketing expert, but I just feel like if we're just human and just be kind and just not trick people and just not be deceptive and just be transparent, I try to, like, even when I like write content or send emails, like I try to, like, I have a sibling, and a wife. So I try to, like, word things in a way that, like, if I'm writing to them,
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
because, like, would I send them something that, like, hurts them or tricks them,
Right.
And I wouldn't. So I just, I think sometimes, like, I don't know. And I struggle with this too. It's just, I think sometimes there are these formulas online about, you need to send X emails and you need to have a 24-hour window of, before things run out kind of idea. And I don't know. I could definitely see where things like that could work. But for me, it hasn't resonated because I would rather preserve and strengthen the relationship than make the sale.
Nice. Yeah. And so, like you're looking at the long-term relationship of you and each right fit client or each right fit customer, but then also, like, your long-term relationship with yourself, where you're going to want to keep really liking yourself and liking what you're putting out there and how you're doing business. So I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I can even give, like, a really practical example if that's helpful.
Sure.
I'm creating this directory, right? So what I realized is in all these conversations, there are a lot of practitioners that are in solo practices who are very isolated, and it's very hard to build relationships. But the theme that keeps coming up over and over in my conversation with successful practitioners is the importance of building solid, supportive relationships with colleagues, right? So I had this idea, what if we create a directory where helpers and healers can connect with one another, right? It's on us. And so I threw this idea out there earlier this year, and I was like, hey guys, I'm going to be figuring this out on your own. This is going to be $5 a month. I want to make it reasonable. And I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, I've given away a lot of free content. Are they going to be upset with me that I'm asking for, $5 a month? It didn't seem like unreasonable, but like maybe it's like my money stuff, right? But we've had over 500 people sign up. It's just something that hasn't even been created, and it's just so humbling because I was like, I don't know, it makes me like, I don't know, it's amazing, right? Like people would trust me enough to, and I do, like, I know that what I create, it's going to be way worth beyond the $5, right? But the fact that folks would trust we work so hard to create income and provide for our families, and folks that would trust me with some of their money,
I love this about you, Melvin, how much I think a lot of therapists are this way, but you seem like particularly this way, where you're just so honored by getting to be in this role and take it so seriously. So I think it makes sense that people trust you really easily because it feels really like you're very transparent.
Yeah. No, thanks for saying that. I just, I don't know. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not an expert, but I just try to be human and show up and,
Yeah. Well, that's my favorite kind of expert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I don't know what to say after this. No,
yeah. Well, so Melvin, where can people find you and throw compliments at you?
You can find me on the Selling the Couch blog, which is at sellingthecouch.com. We also have a wonderful community, which started with 53 of my friends from grad school and practicum and internship, and it's grown here to over 5,000 here in the last, 2 years, which is pretty amazing. And you can find that at sellingthecouch.com/community. And podcasting specific stuff, I do monthly webinars. They're free, just a time to to go much deeper into podcasting, a lot of the technical stuff, lots of time for Q&A. You can find that at sellingthecouch.com/podcasting workshop.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Melvin.
Annie, thank you so much for having me. I'm just, this is like the first time that we've really gotten to connect. I'm just so honored that you invited me and looking forward to like getting to know you more and just grateful for the work that you do for our field.
Thank you. You as well. Here's an idea to try.
Idea to try.
You remember when Melvin and I were talking about theme days, where you've got one day for each kind of work that you do in your business? Now, you may have a private practice where you've got 5 days a week that are dedicated to providing therapy. But knowing that you're also the CEO of your business, are there themes that you could apply to different days of the week in addition to the therapy you provide? So, for example, could you have a day that has some time set aside for networking? Could you have a day that has some time set aside for content creation? Or maybe you want a day with some time set aside for creating an additional offer in your business. Look at your week and see if that idea might help you feel more productive and feel like you're moving in the direction where you want to go. Thanks for listening to Therapist Clubhouse. If you're looking for help creating or expanding your private practice, head over to coachingwithannie.com. The Superpower Method for Therapists group program happens twice a year. Enrollment opens soon for the group starting at the end of August. If this is the time for you to build your practice in a big way, find out more at coachingwithannie.com.